The hospital room smelled of bleach and regret, the kind that clings to your skin like fog off Lake Michigan. Jonathan's father, Earl, lay there under the harsh fluorescent lights, his once broad chest now a shallow rise and fall, the monitors beeping a final, irregular Morse code. As Jonathan gripped his father's hand, cold, veined like cracked earth, he whispered the words he'd buried for 4 decades. "Dad, I love you, and I'm sorry I never said it all." But Earl's eyes, milky with the end, flickered open one last time, locking onto his son's with a clarity that shattered the air. "Son," he rasped, voice like gravel under tires, "I knew, always did, and it never changed a damn thing." Then, with a sigh that rattled the 4-stand, he was gone, leaving Jonathan not just orphaned, but cracked wide open, the silence of 40 years echoing louder than any scream. In that moment, as the nurse pulled the sheet up and the family waited in the hall like statues in a wax museum, Jonathan felt the weight of his hidden life crash down. The boy he'd been, the man he'd pretended to be, and the love he'd starved for in the shadows of a small-town American dream that demanded perfection at any cost. Jonathan stared at the sterile white wall of the hospital corridor, the fluorescent buzz drilling into his skull like a bad hangover from too many unspoken truths. His sisters, Margaret and Lydia, flanked their mother, Beatrice, who sat ramrod straight in her vinyl chair, clutching a rosary so tight her knuckles gleamed like polished ivory. The Midwest winter pressed against the windows. Buffalo Grove, Illinois, where the snow didn't just fall. It buried secrets deeper than Lake Michigan's bottom. 40 years. That's how long Jonathan had carried this, a rucksack of what-ifs slung over one shoulder while he smiled through board meetings and backyard barbecues. The perfect son, the reliable brother, the uncle who fixed bikes and told dad jokes. Earl's death hadn't been sudden, not really. The emphysema had gnawed at him for years, turning the man who'd built their family home with his own calloused hands into a ghost haunting his recliner. But tonight, in that final breath, Earl had gifted Jonathan something priceless. Absolution, unasked for and undeserved. "I knew," he'd said. Simple as that. No sermons, no judgments. Just the quiet admission of a father who'd seen through the cracks all along. Beatrice's voice sliced through the haze. "We should call Father O'Malley for the arrangements. Earl would want a proper Massachusetts." Her eyes, sharp as the icicles daggering the eaves outside, skipped over Jonathan like he was just another fixture in the room. At 78, she was still the queen of their little fiefdom, her silver hair coiled in a bun that hadn't loosened since Eisenhower was president. Jonathan nodded, murmuring agreement, but inside, something uncoiled. A serpent he'd kept chained in his gut since he was 18. The drive home was a funeral procession in slow motion, the family's old Ford Taurus crunching over salted roads under a sky bruised purple by street lamps. Margaret chattered about logistics, caskets, flowers, the ladies' auxiliary potluck, while Lydia scrolled her phone for eulogy templates. Jonathan rode shotgun, staring at the dashboard clock ticking past midnight, each second a reminder of the life he'd paused. Back at the house on Elm Street, the one Earl had hammered together in 1965 with dreams of white picket fences and station wagons, Beatrice retreated to the kitchen. Tea kettle on the stove, her ritual armor against grief. "Jonathan, help your sisters with the calls," she said, not looking up. It was code, keep busy. Don't feel. He did as told because that's what Harpers did. Settled in the den amid stacks of photo albums and Earl's dusty fly fishing gear, Jonathan punched numbers into his phone. Cousins in Milwaukee, old mill buddies from the steel plant. But his mind wandered, unbidden, to that summer night in '85, the fireflies dancing like lost souls in the backyard. He'd been 18, fresh out of high school, the world stretching before him like the endless cornfields beyond town. College at Northwestern on a partial scholarship, dreams of journalism in the big city. But first, the truth. It had spilled out over dinner, clumsy as a fumbled pass in Friday Night Lights. "Mom, Dad, I'm gay." The words hung there, heavier than the pot roast cooling on the platter. Earl had frozen, fork midway to his mouth, his face a mask of confusion melting into something softer, sadder. Son, he'd started, but Beatrice, oh God, Beatrice had gasped. A sound like air sucked from a punctured tire. Her chair scraped back, eyes wide with horror, and then she was crumpling, sliding to the linoleum in a faint that echoed louder than any slap. The ambulance ride. The doctor's grave nod. Stress, ma'am. Keep things calm. And Jonathan, perched on the waiting room plastic, feeling like the villain in his own story. When she woke, Beatrice's first words weren't anger. They were plea. Don't tell anyone, Johnny. For the family. We can fix this. Fix, like he was a leaky faucet or a bent fender. Earl had stayed silent, his hand heavy on Jonathan's shoulder later that night. We'll get through it, boy. Whatever it takes. But the silence took root, a weed choking the garden of their lives. 40 years. Jonathan had married the lie young, dating women from church socials, building a career in Chicago's ad world where charm masked everything. Promotions came easy, copywriter to creative director, because he was good at stories, just not his own. Weekends back in Buffalo Grove, he played the role. Fixing the porch swing, grilling burgers for the grandkids, toasting Earl's Packers fandom with a bud in hand. No one suspected, not even Nathan. Nathan. The name alone stirred a warmth Jonathan had long learned to bank like embers under ash. They'd met 22 years ago at a client mixer in the Loop. Nathan, the sharp-witted photographer from a rival agency. All easy grins and tousled dark hair that begged fingers to run through it. One drink led to late-night walks along the lakefront. Confessions whispered against the crash of waves. I'm tired of hiding, Nathan had said that first winter, their breaths fogging in the cold. Jonathan had pulled him close, the city's lights blurring into stars. Me too. But family. They'd built something quiet, enduring. A brownstone in Wicker Park shared under the guise of roommates. Weekends in Door County cabins where hands could linger without fear. Nathan's camera captured it all. Stolen kisses in golden hour, Jonathan laughing freely for the first time. But even there, the shadow loomed. No rings, no labels. Just love, fierce and unspoken. Because Jonathan couldn't risk the fracture. Not after Beatrice's collapse. The way she'd leaned on him harder after her golden boy who never faltered. Now, with Earl gone, the house felt hollow. Echoes bouncing off wallpaper peeling at the edges like old skin. Jonathan poured coffee at dawn, the machine gurgling like a reluctant confession. Beatrice shuffled in, robe cinched tight, eyes red-rimmed but dry. Your father was a good man, she said, voice brittle as autumn leaves. He held this family together. Jonathan nodded, throat tight. He did. A beat. Then, testing the ice. Mom, about what he said last night. Her spoon clattered against the mug. Don't, Jonathan. Not now. The plea was there, same as 85, but laced with exhaustion. She turned away, busying herself with toast, and he let it drop. Again. The days blurred into funeral prep. Selecting Earl's best suit from the closet that still smelled of pipe tobacco and motor oil. Sorting through yellowed letters from his army days in Korea. Margaret and Lydia dove in with efficiency, but Jonathan lingered over a faded snapshot. Him at 10, gap-toothed grin, arm slung around Earl's neck during a White Sox game. That's my boy. Earl's scrawl on the back read. My boy. The words twisted now, a knife in the ribs. Nathan called that afternoon, voice steady as Lake Michigan on a calm day. How you holding up, Jay? They'd agreed. No visits to Buffalo Grove. Too risky, too many eyes. But Jonathan ached for him, the solid warmth of Nathan's shoulder against his. Like hell frozen over, Jonathan admitted, stepping onto the back porch where the cold bit like judgment. He knew Nate. All this time. Silence, then Nathan's soft intake. That's everything. Come home soon. We can talk. Home. The word landed like a stone in still water. Jonathan hung up, staring at the swing set rusted from disuse. Ghosts of his niece's laughter long faded. 40 years of silence. And now? The dam was cracking. The wake was a parade of condolences. The VFW hall packed with faces weathered by factory shifts and Friday fish fries. Old-timers clapped Jonathan on the back. Earl was proud of you, son. While cousins from Rockford pressed casseroles into Beatrice's hands. She moved through it like a general, accepting hugs with nods that brooked no tears. But Jonathan saw the tremble in her fingers, the way she avoided his gaze when Father O'Malley mentioned family unity in God's plan. That night, alone in his boyhood room, posters of Springsteen and the Cubs yellowed on the walls. Jonathan pulled a shoebox from under the bed. Letters, mostly from Nathan. Scribbled notes from road trips, pressed wildflowers from Michigan dunes. One from early on. Love isn't a secret to keep. It's a light to share. Wait for me always. He traced the ink, faded but fierce, and wondered if Earl had ever glimpsed this hidden archive, the life Jonathan had half-lived. Sleep came fitful, dreams tangled with 85. Beatrice's body hitting the floor, Earl's hand on his shoulder, the paramedics' lights flashing red and blue like accusations. He woke to rain lashing the window, the kind that turns Illinois fields to mud. Downstairs, Beatrice was at the table, a legal pad open before her. Earl's will, no doubt. "We need to discuss the house," she said without preamble, eyes fixed on the page. "It's yours and the girls. But with your father's passing, changes." Jonathan poured cereal, the crunch loud in the quiet. "Changes how?" She hesitated, pen tapping. "The estate. Debts from his treatments. We might need to sell." "Sell Elm Street?" The words hit like a gut punch. "This house. Its creaky stairs, the kitchen where arguments simmered like soup, the den where Earl taught him to tie flies, was the anchor of everything. Mom will figure it out. Together." Her smile was thin, forced. "Of course. Family first." But as he watched her sign the papers, a flicker of something, doubt, fear, crossed her face. And Jonathan wondered, for the first time in 40 years, if the silence he'd kept had been for her, or for him. The funeral mass dragged under the vaulted ceilings of St. Mary's, incense curling like smoke signals from a distant war. Father O'Malley droned on about eternal rest and the wages of sin. His voice a familiar rumble that once soothed Jonathan through Little League losses and algebra fails. Now it chafed, each amen from the pews a reminder of the life he'd nodded along to, head bowed not in prayer but evasion. Earl's casket gleamed mahogany under the stained glass light. Roses from the garden he'd tended with arthritic hands spilling over the edges like blood from a wound. Beatrice sat beside Jonathan, her black veil a shroud, tissues crumpled in her lap. Margaret and Lydia flanked her, their husbands murmuring comforts, kids fidgeting in starched collars. The church smelled of wax and wool, the air thick with the low hum of shared sorrow. Jonathan's gaze drifted to the crucifix above the altar. Christ's eyes downcast, thorns digging deep. How many secrets had been confessed here, absolved in whispers? His own had never crossed these lips, not fully. Penance, he'd told himself, for the pain he'd caused. Afterward, the procession to Oakwood Cemetery wound through town like a serpent, black sedans cutting through April mist that clung to the budding maples. At the graveside, under a sky the color of Earl's old work shirt, they lowered him into earth that drank rain like tears. Jonathan shoveled the first clod, the thud against wood final as a slammed door. "Goodbye, Dad," he murmured, and for a heartbeat, it felt like freedom. The luncheon back at the house was awake in earnest. Neighbors with Jell-O salads, aunts with thermoses of spiked coffee, uncles recounting Earl's glory days at the foundry. Jonathan moved through it on autopilot, plate balanced with ham on rye he couldn't taste, laughs forced for stories of the time Earl fixed the mayor's Cadillac with baling wire. Nathan texted midway, "Thinking of you. Call when it's quiet." Jonathan's thumb hovered, aching to reply with more than emojis, but he pocketed the phone. "Not here. Not yet." Beatrice held court in the living room, her grief a crown she wore with dignity. "Earl was the rock," she told Mrs. Kowalski from down the block, voice steady. "But we'll carry on." The older woman nodded, patting her hand, then leaned toward Jonathan with a conspiratorial whisper. "You take care of her now here? Families stick, like glue over cracks, or tar over truths. As the crowd thinned, dusk painting the windows gold, Beatrice pulled him aside into the kitchen. The counters gleamed from Margaret's scrubbing, but the air held the faint tang of yesterday's grief. "Johnny," she said, using the boyhood name like a key to old locks. "About the will. Your father. He left instructions." Jonathan leaned against the fridge, arms crossed like a shield. "Tell me." She unfolded the document, pages crisp as new snow. Earl's script, shaky from the end. The house to the 3 siblings equally, saving split, but a codicil. Provisions for Beatrice's care, tied to maintaining the family legacy. Jonathan scanned it, heart sinking at the fine print. Expectations of upholding values. Vague enough to haunt. "What does this mean, Mom?" Her eyes met his, finally raw and pleading. "It means we stay the course. No disruptions." Earl wanted stability. Disruptions. The word landed like an accusation, and suddenly the room tilted back to 85. The dinner table, his confession, her collapse. "Mom, Dad knew about me. He said so right before." "Stop." Her voice cracked, a fault line. "He was delirious. Pain meds. Don't rewrite history, Jonathan. We buried that for a reason." The kettle whistled then, shrill as a siren, and she turned to it like salvation. Jonathan stood frozen, the paper crumpling in his fist. Buried. Like Earl, 6 feet under with his secrets intact. That night, the house groaned under storm winds, rain sheeting the panes like accusations. Jonathan lay awake, the ceiling fan whirring lazy circles, mind replaying the codicil's shadows. Legacy. What was theirs, really? The clabbered facade hiding rot? He slipped downstairs, the stairs creaking betrayal, and found Beatrice in the den. Album open on her lap. Photos spilled. Earl in uniform, young and cocky. Beatrice in her wedding gown, veil like wings. Jonathan as a toddler, chubby fists clutching her skirt. She didn't startle when he sat beside her. "Couldn't sleep?" he asked. "Memories," she whispered, tracing a finger over a shot of the family at Lake Geneva. 78. Sun on water, smiles wide. "Your father. He loved you so much. More than anything." Then why the conditions? The values clause. Her hand stilled. Because he saw what the world does to dreamers. To differences. He wanted to protect us. From what? From me. The album snapped shut. "From pain, Johnny. Yours. Ours." After that night. Couldn't breathe. The doctor said shock. But it was my heart breaking. For the boy I raised, the life I dreamed for him. Wife, kids, the American way. Jonathan's chest tightened. Old wounds reopening. And what if that wasn't me? What if I just wanted to be happy? She looked at him then. Really looked. Lines etching deeper around her mouth. "Happiness isn't free. It costs." The words hung, heavy as the storm outside. He wanted to rage, to spill 40 years of swallowed truths. The lonely bars in Boys Town before Nathan. The therapy sessions labeled adjustment. The way he'd flinch at touch in public. But instead, he touched her hand, frail as bird bones. "Maybe it's time to pay up." She pulled away, rising with effort. "Not yet, please, for Earl." He watched her climb the stairs, each step an echo of surrender. Alone with the album, Jonathan flipped to a hidden page. A snapshot tucked in the back, Earl and him fishing at dawn, no one else around. Earl's arm around his shoulders, grin proud. On the back, "My boy always." Tears blurred the ink, and for the first time Jonathan let them fall. Morning brought clearing skies, but the air held a chill that seeped into bones. Margaret and Lydia arrived with coffee and resolve, divvying tasks. Bank runs, obituary proofs. "We'll list the house next week," Margaret said over danishes, practical as ever. "Market's hot, we can split clean." Jonathan choked on his bite. "Sell? Already?" Lydia shrugged, scrolling Zillow. "Debts, bro. And Mom can't manage alone." Beatrice nodded from her perch by the window, sunlight haloing her like a saint. "It's practical." But Jonathan saw the flicker in her eyes. Fear. Maybe, of empty rooms echoing louder than lies. What if we don't? Rent it out, or I could move back. Help. The room stilled. Margaret's brow arched. From Chicago? Your job. For family, he said, the word tasting like ash. But beneath it, a spark. Time to rewrite the script. The sisters exchanged glances, but Beatrice's voice cut through. We'll think on it. Soft, but laced with steel. Later, as they cleared plates, Jonathan's phone buzzed. Nathan. A voice memo. Jay. I booked Door County for next weekend. Just us. Come when you can. Love you. The words washed over him. A bomb. He typed back. Soon. Promise. Driving back to the city that evening, the expressway a ribbon of taillights under sodium glow, Jonathan's mind raced. 40 years of detours, and now the fork. Straight into the lie, or left toward light. Earl's voice echoed, I knew. A compass pointing true north. His brownstone waited like an old friend, keys jangling in the lock. Nathan was there, sleeves rolled up, chopping onions for risotto, his ritual welcome. The scent hit Jonathan like home. Garlic, thyme, the faint earthiness of their shared life. Nathan turned, wiping hands on a towel, and pulled him into an embrace that said everything words couldn't. Rough. Understatement. Jonathan sank onto a stool, the story tumbling out. The will, Beatrice's plea, the ghosts rising. Nathan listened, eyes steady, then slid a glass of red his way. What do you want, Jay? Not what they need, what you? The question hung simple as a hook. Jonathan sipped, the wine tart on his tongue. To stop running. To tell her, really tell her. And mean it. Nathan's hand covered his warm anchor. Then do it. You're not 18 anymore. No, he wasn't. 58, with lines earned from smiles faked and loves half-lived. That night, tangled in sheets that smelled of them, Jonathan dreamed not of collapses, but of dawns. Light breaking over dunes, hands clasped without shame. But Monday brought reality. Emails piling, clients demanding pitches. The ad world's grind that had been his escape hatch. He threw himself in, crafting campaigns for minivans and mortgage lenders, selling dreams he couldn't buy. Yet Nathan's words lingered, a low hum under the fluorescent office buzz. Midweek, a call from Beatrice. Johnny, the realtor's coming Friday. Bring your thoughts. Thoughts. He had volumes. That night, over takeout lo mein with Nathan, he voiced them. I'm going back. To fight for the house. For us, all of us, to face it. Nathan's fork paused. Us. You. Me. The truth. Jonathan's pulse thrummed. Move with me? Or visit? Make it real. Nathan's smile dawned slow, bright. About damn time. Friday loomed like a storm front. But for once, Jonathan felt the wind at his back. The realtor, a brisk woman named Carla with a bob haircut and a tablet full of comps, arrived precisely at 2, her SUV crunching gravel in the drive like an unwelcome guest. Jonathan had driven down early, Nathan's kiss lingering on his lips like a talisman. You've got this. The house on Elm stood defiant under a sun that baked the lawn patchy. Its blue shutters faded but proud, a sentinel against the tide of change. Beatrice greeted Carla at the door with coffee and cool courtesy, while Jonathan lingered in the foyer, inhaling the scent of lemon polish and latent history. Margaret and Lydia were en route, their texts buzzing. Stuck in traffic? Don't sign anything. As if he would. Carla Dove in measuring tapes snapping, photos flashing, kitchen renos, master suite potential. Great bones, she enthused. Flip it right, you could clear 200K easy. Beatrice nodded along, but her eyes darted to Jonathan. A silent appeal. He cleared his throat. Carla, mind if we hold off? Family discussion first. She arched a brow but pocketed her stylus. Sure. Market's forgiving, for now. With a business card flourish, she was gone, leaving the air thicker than gumbo. They gathered in the living room, dust motes dancing in sunbeams like hesitant confetti. Beatrice perched on the sofa's edge, hands knotted. Well? Jonathan paced to the mantel, fingers brushing a brass eagle Earl had won at a turkey shoot. I don't want to sell. Not yet. This place. His dad. Us. Margaret arrived then, breathless, Lydia trailing with donuts. Sorry, bridge was a mess. They settled, the circle closing, and Jonathan felt the weight. 3 women, his anchors and chains. I propose we keep it, he said, voice steady as he'd practiced in the rearview. I move back. Handle upkeep, bills. Rent rooms if needed. Lydia snorted mid-bite. You? From the city? What about your loft, your creative vibe? Nathan's face flickered in his mind. Brownstone stairs. Camera lenses fogged from winter breaths. I'll commute. Or bring someone with me. The room inhaled sharp. Margaret's eyes narrowed. Someone. A partner, Jonathan said. The word foreign on his tongue, tasting like liberation. We've been together 20 years. Time to make it official. Beatrice's teacup rattled in its saucer. Partner. Like business. No, Mom. Like love. He met her gaze, the one that had shattered once before. Like Dad knew about. Silence stretched, taut as a bowstring. Lydia broke it first, blunt as always. Wait, you're gay? For real? Jonathan laughed. A bark that eased the knot in his chest. For real. Since forever. Margaret's face softened, piecing puzzles. The roommate in Chicago. Nathan? He nodded, warmth blooming. Yeah, best thing in my life. Beatrice rose, slow as dawn, face ashen. This is. Why now? After Earl. Because he gave me permission. In his last breath. And I'm tired, Mom. Tired of the half-life. Her hand flew to her chest, echo of 85, but she didn't fall. Instead, she sank back, eyes glistening. I can't. Johnny, the town, the family, what will they say? Let them talk, Margaret interjected, surprising him. We've got grandkids asking why Uncle John's always alone. Time for truth. Lydia nodded, tentative. Yeah, and the will, legacy probably meant this. Dad was old school, but he loved you. Beatrice's sob escaped, raw and ragged. Jonathan knelt before her, taking her hands, cold, trembling. I'm sorry for the pain I caused, but hiding hurt us all. She searched his face, decades folding in her brow. That night, I thought I'd lose you, to the world, to whispers. You almost did, he whispered, to my own fear. The tears came then, mutual, a dam breaking after 40 years. Margaret fetched tissues, Lydia squeezed shoulders, and for the first time, the room held not fracture, but mending. They talked till dusk, words tumbling like leaves in wind. Nathan's photography, their hikes in the Smokies, the quiet dinners where Jonathan learned to be seen. Beatrice listened, questions hesitant. Does he cook? And Jonathan saw glimmers. Curiosity piercing grief's veil. By evening, tentative accord. Hold the house, Jonathan moves in summers, Nathan visits. Start small, Beatrice said, voice steadier. Like testing waters. He hugged her goodbye, her embrace fierce, lingering. Driving north, the radio crooned Springsteen. Thunder Road, escape anthem, and Jonathan belted it. Windows down, wind whipping secrets free. Nathan waited on the stoop, porch light haloing him golden. How'd it go? Earthquake. Good one. Jonathan pulled him close, kissing under the stars. She knows. They all do. Nathan's grin split wide. Proud of you, Jay. Inside, over wine and takeout, they planned weekend trips to Elm, slow integrations. But joy tempered with caution. Beatrice's health, sister's support, the town's murmur. Weeks blurred into spring's thaw, lilacs blooming defiant along fences. Jonathan shuttled between worlds. Chicago deadlines, Buffalo Grove repairs, new roof shingles under Nathan's steady lens, capturing the sweat and satisfaction. Beatrice softened, tentative calls evolving to shared recipes, her voice lighter when Nathan's name dropped. One Sunday, impulse struck. Come meet them. Brunch. Nathan hesitated, camera slung over shoulder. You sure? Surer than ever. Elm Street welcomed them with Beatrice's quiche and Margaret's mimosas. Lydia's kids tumbling like puppies. Awkward at first, handshake stiff, questions probing. But Nathan's charm disarmed. Stories of Yellowstone shoots, tips for the boys' baseball swings. Beatrice watched, fork poised. Then, tell me about how you met. Over eggs, the tale unfolded. Mixer mishaps, lakefront walks, and laughter rippled, genuine. The kids peppered Nathan with Uncle Nate. And he knelt, patient, world-building with them. After, as dishes clattered, Beatrice pulled Jonathan aside. He's kind, like your father. Heart swell. Yeah, he is. But shadows lingered. Mid-June, a letter arrived, lawyer's seal, regarding the will. Clarifications needed. It read, summoning them to the firm's oak-paneled office in town. Beatrice's face paled, reading it aloud. What now? The meeting was an ambush. Earl's attorney, Mr. Hargrove, spectacles perched like a judge's gavel, slid documents across polished wood. Contingencies. Upon review, the legacy clause requires alignment with familial norms. Cohabitation outside marriage may affect disbursement. Jonathan's blood iced. What the hell does that mean? Precisely traditional structures. To honor Earl's intent. Beatrice gasped. But Earl was clear, Hargrove interrupted. Protect the estate from unconventional claims. Unconventional. The word slithered, venomous. Nathan's hand under the table, steadying, but rage boiled. This is blackmail. Dad wouldn't. Sign or contest, Hargrove said, folding papers. Your choice. Outside, under a sky-threatening thunder, Beatrice wept. I didn't know. He must have, after your coming out, to shield me. Shield. Or cage. Jonathan paced the sidewalk, Nathan at his side. We fight this. But Beatrice's voice trembled. At what cost? The house, savings gone. The betrayal stung, not just Earl's hidden codicil, but the lie it perpetuated. Love as liability. Nathan squeezed his arm. We walk away if needed. Start fresh. That night, back in the city, storm raging, Jonathan confronted the box of letters anew. One from Earl, tucked forgotten. Postmark 86, handwriting steady. Son, life's too short for closets. But if you're in one, know I got the key. Love, Dad. Tears hot. He'd missed it, fear blinding. Now the key turned, but the door stuck. July's heat wave baked Buffalo Grove into a skillet, air shimmering off asphalt like bad decisions. Jonathan and Nathan holed up in the brownstone's AC hum, poring over legal pads and Hargrove's clauses like detectives in a noir flick. Contest the will? Risk bleeding the estate dry in court? Lawyers feasting on family bones. Sign and swallow the bitter pill. Separate lives codified. Love leashed to norms. Nathan paced the living room, camera idle on the tripod, frustration etching his jaw. This isn't Earl. It's fear. His, hers, whoever drafted this crap. Jonathan nodded, but doubt gnawed. He knew me, Nate, but maybe not enough. Nights stretched sleepless, dreams of caskets and contracts tangling like briars. Beatrice called daily, voice frayed thread. The girls are furious. Margaret wants to sue. Lydia says walk. Her own lean? Silence heavy as humidity. Jonathan drove down solo, Nathan respecting the space. Your battle first. Elm Street sweltered, fans whirring futile against the siege. Beatrice met him on the porch, iced tea sweating in glasses, her face drawn under the wide-brim hat. Let's talk, he said, settling into rockers that creaked like confessions. She sipped, eyes on the street where kids bicycled lazy loops. I burned the letters, your father's, from the war, said things, doubts about God, about us. He was scared, Johnny, of not being enough. The admission hung a bridge over chasms. Like me. Her nod was small. After you told us, I saw him break a little, not anger, grief. For the world he couldn't fix. Tears traced her cheeks, unheeded. The will was his way. Control what he could. Jonathan reached hand on hers. But control isn't love. Then what is? Her voice cracked. Raw plea. It's this, he said. Talking. Finally. They sat then, words unspooling slow. Her girlhood in Gary, Indiana, steel mill daughter dreaming white dresses. Earl's courtship, dances at the USO. The night of Jonathan's birth, a blizzard trapping them joyful. And the collapse, her fear not just of loss, but of losing him to a world she'd heard preached as cruel. I prayed, she whispered, for a miracle, to change you. And now, she looked at him, really lines mapping a life of quiet endurance. I pray for peace. For you. It wasn't absolution, but a start. They hugged, her frame bird fragile, and Jonathan left with a seed planted. Forgiveness, tentative as first green. Back in Chicago, Nathan waited with cold beer and a plan. We go public. Here first, friends, work. Build armor. Jonathan hesitated, pulse racing. The agency's conservative. Clients. Screw 'em. You're the best they got. Nathan's eyes burned. Fierce. And I'm done hiding my masterpiece. The coming out was quieter than 85, no dinners, just emails and coffees. First, his assistant, Priya, over lattes in the break room. Nathan and I. It's real. Her hug was instant. Fierce. Knew it. Happy for you, boss. Word rippled. Reactions mixed. Nods from the young creatives. Awkward silences from old guard. But no collapses, no ambulances, just life. Adjusting. Nathan framed a photo on his desk. Them at the Art Institute, hands brushing Picassos. Emboldened, Jonathan looped in Margaret and Lydia via Zoom, screens glowing like portals. We're fighting the will, but on our terms, no more clauses. Margaret's jaw set. Damn right. I'll testify. Dad told me once. Let John be John. Lydia chimed, kids clamoring background. And bring Nate to the lake house. Boys need uncles who aren't boring. Laughter bridged the miles, and Jonathan felt the net widen. Safety in threads woven new. August brought the hearing. A stuffy courthouse in Waukegan, where Lake Michigan's breeze mocked the proceedings through cracked windows. Hargrove sat opposite. Tie knotted like a noose, documents fanned like a bad hand. The judge, a silver-haired woman with eyes like Earl's, kind but keen, reviewed the codicil. Mr. Harper, explain this legacy language. Jonathan stood, suit crisp, Nathan's ring simple silver, cool on his finger. Your Honor, it's a relic of fear. My father loved me, gay or not. This clause? It's not his heart. It's the era's echo. Beatrice testified next, voice quavering but clear. Earl wanted protection, but he wouldn't cage his son. Her eyes met Jonathan's across the room. A nod. I'm here. Hargrove blustered. Precedence intense. But the judge's gavel fell merciful. Clause stricken. Estate divided equally. No contingencies. Love's the only legacy that holds. Relief crashed like waves. Hugs in the hall, Margaret whooping. Outside, under a sky vast as possibility, Nathan pulled Jonathan close. We did it. We, yes, the word sang. Fall unfurled in golds and crimsons. Leaves carpeting elm like confetti for the living. Jonathan and Nathan split time. City buzz to town hush. Renovating the guest room into a studio. Nathan's prints blooming on walls. Beatrice watched, tentative participant. Critiquing frames, too blue, dear. Sharing Earl's old recipes with a wink. One crisp Sunday, raking leaves, she broached the unspoken. Johnny, that night, I failed you. He paused, pile half-formed. We both did, but we're here. She smiled, faint but true. Invite the family, proper. With Nathan. The dinner was chaos beautiful. Tables groaning under turkey and fixings. Kids shrieking tag in the yard. Sisters toasting to truths. Nathan carved, easy in the fray, and Beatrice raised her glass. To Earl, and to love that endures. Jonathan's eyes misted. Nathan's hand finding his under the cloth. Anchor, always. But winter whispered warnings. Beatrice's cough started subtle, dismissed as damp air, but deepened to rattles that echoed Earl's last hacks. Doctor visits piled. Pneumonia, then shadows on scans. Stage 3, the oncologist said, voice clinical. Aggressive. The world tilted anew. Jonathan shuttled more, Nathan's camera capturing not sunsets, but her frail form in hospital gowns, dignity unbroken. Don't fuss, she'd snap, but her hand clung tighter. Holidays blurred. Thanksgiving at Elm, Christmas lights strung defiant. Nathan strung garlands, kids baked gingerbread, and Beatrice, bundled in shawls, told stories. Earl's proposal under northern lights, a stolen weekend in '62. New Year's, snow blanketing like mercy. She worsened. Jonathan at her bedside, Nathan in the hall with coffee runs. Promise me, she whispered, oxygen mask fogging. Live loud. For me. I will, he vowed, throat burning. She slipped away at dawn, January 15th, the room filling with light as if she'd cracked the curtain herself. No collapse this time, just release. The funeral was smaller, intimate. St. Mary's again, but pews filled with Nathan's artist friends mingling mill workers. Rainbow pins beside Union buttons. Eulogy delivered, Jonathan's voice steady. She taught me endurance, and in the end, acceptance. Graveside, under bare oaks, he scattered her rosary beads into the wind. Prayers freed. Spring returned reluctant, crocuses pushing through frost-kissed soil like stubborn hopes. Elm Street stood quieter without Beatrice's routines, the kettle's whistle, the radio's big band murmur. But Jonathan and Nathan filled it, tentative stewards. The will settled clean, proceeds split. House theirs to keep or gift, savings seating a trust for the nieces and nephews. Margaret and Lydia visited often, brunches turning to planning sessions. Turn the attic into an Airbnb? Nate's photos would sell it. Nathan laughed. Easel set up in the den. Or just a darkroom. Let artists breathe here. Jonathan watched him work, charcoal smudging fingers as he sketched Beatrice from memory. Her smile, soft in repose. You're magic, he murmured one evening, kissing knuckles black with art. You're home, Nathan replied, pulling him down to the rug, fire crackling low. But grief's undercurrent tugged, waves of what-ifs. More time with her, deeper talks. Letters surfaced in her desk, unsent to Jonathan. My boy, forgive the cage. I was caged too. Tears then, shared, Nathan holding as sobs racked. She came around, he soothed. That's the win. Work pulled Jonathan's city ward, but weekends rooted deep. Farmers markets in Libertyville. Hikes along the Des Plaines River where willows wept secrets. Town whispers faded. Buffalo Grove's grapevine, once venomous, now shrugged. Harper's always were quirky. Pride flags fluttered from porches. A quiet evolution. Summer swelled, heat lightning forking night skies. Nathan's exhibit in Chicago beckoned. Midwest hearts, portraits of fractured families mending. Jonathan midlaugh at a niece's t-ball game. Beatrice's hands folding laundry. Earl's shadow in a workbench glow. Opening night buzzed. Critics sipping Chardonnay. Flashes popping. Jonathan circulated, name-dropping clients. But pride swelled fiercest seeing Nathan hold court. These aren't poses. They're permissions. A reviewer cornered him later, notebook poised. Your partner's work, raw, personal. Jonathan grinned, arm around Nathan's waist. Husband, actually. We made it official last month. Courthouse, no fuss. The piece ran front page arts. Love's Quiet Revolution. A Harper's Tale. Clippings mailed to sisters. Framed on Elm's mantle. But autumn brought shadows anew. Nathan's cough started innocuous. Hay fever, he joked, dismissing Jonathan's frets. Allergies to small-town pollen. Yet it lingered, deepening to wheezes that interrupted sleep. Doctor in the loop. Tests, scans, a verdict over fluorescent glare. Early lymphoma. Treatable. Chemo, radiation, good odds. The word cancer echoed Beatrice's. A cruel reprise. Jonathan gripped the armrest, world narrowing to Nathan's hand in his. Steady, still. We'll fight, he said, voice steel. Home that night, brownstone dimmed. They sat on the fire escape, city hum below. Scared, Jonathan asked. Nathan nodded, honest. Yeah, of leaving you half done. Won't happen. Kiss then, fierce, sealing vows unspoken. Treatments commenced, a gauntlet. Infusions dripping slow poison, Nathan's frame thinning, hair shedding like autumn leaves. Jonathan commuted fierce, work squeezed into calls, weekends at Elm for air. Sisters rallied, Margaret with meal trains, Lydia with kid distractions. Uncle Nate, check this fort. Beatrice's rosary, rest rung, dangled from Nathan's forestand, borrowed faith. For luck, Jonathan said. Nathan smirked, weak but wicked. Or rebellion. Holidays anchored them. Thanksgiving at the lake house, chemo pause allowing travel. Turkey charred but cherished, stories swapped under star-pricked skies. New Year's, Nathan stronger. They danced slow in the kitchen. Springsteen crooning, dancing in the dark. Bodies close against the cold. Winter gripped, but so did resolve. Scans showed shrinkage, doctors nodding approval. Responding well, Nathan's hair regrew stubborn curls, energy returning in bursts. Camera reclaimed, shoots of resilient faces. Chemo nurses, survivor tattoos. Yet doubt whispered. Is it enough? One February night, fever spiking. Nathan thrashed in delirium, murmuring names. Lovers lost, projects unfinished. Jonathan cooled his brow, whispering back. I'm here, we're here. Dawn brought clarity, Nathan's eyes clearing. Sorry, ghosts. Everyone's got M. Jonathan traced his jaw. Ours just bite harder. Spring's thaw mirrored recovery, crocuses again defiant. Nathan's final treatment loomed, a finish line. They marked it at Elm. Backyard fire pit, sisters and spouses, kids roasting marshmallows. Toasts rose. To fighters. Nathan, gaunt but grinning, raised his S-more. To the ones who stayed, Beatrice's absence ached, but her spirit lingered. In the quiche recipe Margaret botched, the rosary beads circling the firelight. Post-chemo, Nathan slept deep, Jonathan vigilant. Weeks on, clear scans, remission. The word tasted like rain after drought. They celebrated quiet. Door county cabin. Dunes whispering secrets. Hands laced as waves lapped. Back home, life resumed textured. Nathan's next exhibit. Jonathan's promotion to VP. Ironic. Selling authenticity now lived. Town integrated them. Nathan judging the county fair photos. Jonathan coaching Little League. Rainbow laces in cleats. One lazy Sunday, Elm's porch swaying. Nathan broached, kids? Or no? Jonathan stilled, heart full. Adoption? If you're game. Nathan's smile dawned. Hell yes. Teach him to frame the world right. Papers filed, home studies passed, nerves electric. The match came swift. Brothers, 5 and 7. Foster to adopt. Brown eyes wide as Elm's oaks. First meeting at the agency. Hands tentative, but Nathan knelt. Wanna see my darkroom? Magic happens there. Homecoming was chaos. Bunk beds hammered, Jonathan's carpentry, Earl's echo, first dinners with Nathan's spaghetti, bedtime stories of Midwestern myths. Beatrice would have adored her grandsons. Letters she'd written in her drawer promising lullabies. Jonathan read them aloud, voice thick, as boys snuggled close. Summer peaked, family swelling. Sisters' visits, Nathan's camera chronicling it. Snapshots of puddle jumps, fort builds, Nathan's arm around Jonathan at dusk barbecues. Yet beneath joy, echoes. Earl's knowing eyes, Beatrice's final plea. Live loud, she'd said. They did. Pride in Chicago, floats rainbowed, boys waving flags on shoulders. Town pride too, small but growing, Jonathan speaking. 40 years silent. Now, symphony. Fall's palette deepened resolve. Nathan's health held, scans pristine. They traveled light. Smokey's cabins, hands and streams. California coasts, boys chasing gulls. Winter whispered peace, snow soft on elm. Christmas lights twinkled, tree laden with ornaments. Earl's glass bulb, Beatrice's knitted star, boys' clay handprints. Dinner laughter rang, Nathan carving ham. To legacies rewritten, Jonathan met his eyes, love a quiet thunder. To us, the years folded like well-worn maps, edges soft from handling. By 2025, Elm Street had become a crossroads. City escapes bleeding into town rhythms, Jonathan's silver threading Nathan's curls, boys, now teens Eli and Theo, stretching tall with questions sharp as switchblades. Dad, why'd Grandma collapse? Eli asked one harvest eve, raking leaves into pyres. Jonathan paused, rake mid-swoop, Nathan nearby stacking cordwood. Fear, bud, of losing me, but she learned love wins. Theo snorted, earbuds dangling. Cheesy, but true. Truest. Nathan winked, tossing a leaf bomb. Laughter scattered, light as frost. Work evolved, Jonathan semi-retired, consulting for queer-owned startups. Campaigns bold, unapologetic. Nathan's gallery in Evanston thrived, walls alive with Harper Chronicles. Evolving portraits, boys' grins amid milestones, Beatrice's ghost in garden blooms. Sisters wove tighter, Margaret's divorce, Lydia's empty nest. Weekends at Elm mending nets. You started it, Margaret teased over wine. Truth serum, Beatrice's anniversary passed gentle. Grave tended with wildflowers, her favorites, daisies defiant. Miss you, Jonathan murmured, Nathan's hand warm. But we're good. Spring 2026 brought the call. Eli, 17, voice cracking over speaker. I think I'm bi. Freaking out. Heart swell, echo of 85 but reframed. Jonathan pulled Nathan aside. Our turn. They drove to the dorm, Northwestern, full circle. Found Eli pacing quad, autumn chill nipping. Hugs first, no words wasted. Proud, Jonathan said. Always. Nathan added, world's bigger now, but you've got backup. Tears, then pizza. Deep dish, extra sausage. Stories swapped. Jonathan's closet, Nathan's first crush on a lifeguard. Eli exhaled. Not alone. Theo came out fluid a year later, non-binary they slashed them. Flag pinned proud. Family dinner sealed it. Pronouns practiced, Nathan's toast. To labels that fit or don't. Pride that summer, boys marching foreground, Jonathan and Nathan trailing. Hands clasped, rings glinting, banners waved. Love endures. A reporter snagged Jonathan. Your story inspires. 40 years earning it, he replied. Headline next day, From Silence to Symphony. A gay dad's American dream. Winters warmed, climate's cruel joke, but home held. Nathan's health flickered, routine scans vigilant, but remission stuck, a quiet victory. Eli's wedding, 2032. Partner Alex. Backyard elm under string lights. Vows echoed Earl's unspoken. Knew always. Loved fiercer. Beatrice's rosary circled the cake knife, tradition twisted tender. Theo's art opening, gallery humming, Nathan's influence, abstracts of identity's blur. To shadows that dance, they toasted. Grandkids arrived, tiny fists clutching Nathan's fingers, Jonathan's stories lulling. Once, a boy whispered truth, and worlds shifted. Old age crept gentle. Joints creaking like elm stairs. Nathan's camera digital now, but I keen. They traveled slow. Amtrak to New Orleans, jazz weaving memories. Flights to Oregon, boys' families joining. One crisp October, porch swing eternal. Nathan leaned head on shoulder. Regrets. Jonathan pondered. Fireflies winking. None. You. 40 years? Worth the wait. Beatrice's words resurfaced in a trunk. Journals, her hand chronicling the collapse. My sin. Not his. To later entries. Johnny's light. Nathan's too. Forgiven. Read aloud to the family. Circled close. Tears mingled with laughs. Human, Margaret said. All of it. Eli's first child. A girl named B. Arrived dawn's light, Elm's nursery ready. Jonathan held her, Nathan snapping first portrait. Legacy looped. Years tallied. Speeches at galas. Jonathan's memoir, Silent No More. Bestseller, Film Whispers. Nathan's coffee table book, Framed Lives. Donated proceeds to youth shelters. Final autumn, leaves gold as grace. Nathan weakened. Relapse, swift shadow. Hospice at Elm, room sunlit, boys and grands rotating vigils. Tell the story, he rasped one dusk, Jonathan at bedside. Which? Ours. End to end. Jonathan did, voice steady through tears. Hook of hospital confessions, arcs of betrayal and bloom, climax in courts and couches, denouement this, love's quiet close. Nathan smiled, eyes dimming. Good plot. Sequel's yours. He slipped at midnight, hand in Jonathan's, breath easing to wind. Grief carved deep, but family buffered. Wakes with whiskey, memorials with music, Springsteen wailing Thunder Road. Nathan's ashes scattered Door County dunes, waves claiming gentle. Jonathan endured, pen in hand, sequel penned, echoes of us, truths for B and beyond. Decades later, porch swing still, grands chasing fireflies, Jonathan watched, Nathan's ring warm on chain. 40 years silent, 40 more sung. Legacy? Not clause-bound, but lived, raw, romantic, relentlessly human. The American dream, rewritten. Not perfection, but persistence. Love, the only plot that twists true.